dollars back into our communities throughout the state if we shop local and stay offline. So please do that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have the pleasure of having a very important individual. We have our prosecuting attorney, Kyle Butler. Kyle.
Hello. Well, I'm no important than everybody else around here. I'll have to say this though, it's great to be back. It's great to see everybody in person, and thanks again for having me. So now we've got jury trials in full effect now. Okay, we had to go on a pause for a little bit, then we started them up, then we stopped them again. We're back in full effect, and it was actually as late as last week. I thought I was going to be in trial today and not going to be able to appear here today, so this is kind of a last minute thing for me. But yes, the person who was charged with murder in a drunk driving crash causing death of Trooper Caleb Starr had pled guilty just last Thursday, late afternoon. That trial was scheduled to start this morning, so that's what I thought my week was going to be revolving around. But that changed last second. So some things that have been going on lately with the prosecutor's office, we've been dealing a lot with criminal justice reform. Earlier this year, a lot of change occurred from the legislature, which affected not only the way officers handle cases in the streets, but then also there's bond reform that's being talked about, there's probation reform that's being talked about and has passed, and then also people are able to set aside more of their crimes that they've committed in the past through expungement processes. So we've now been dealing with all that at the prosecutor's office level, trying to keep victims informed, trying to keep our officers informed of the changes of the law, then working with the probation department and judges as we see these new laws be implemented, and now we see them in the courts. Some other things that I've personally been working on is I'm also the member of the Appropriation Committee, and what that's all about in this case is redistricting where the commissioners' districts are located. And so it's myself, it was the clerk of the county, the treasurer of the county, the chair of the Ionia County Democratic Party, and the chair of the Ionia County Republican Party, all were tasked then with getting together, looking at these redistricting maps, trying to figure out what's the best, most safe, most fair way to redistrict things in compliance with the law. And so we had to do it. We had to redistrict things because we were not in compliance with the law due to population shifts and changes. All right. So we did just pass a map. We voted on a map last week, and then we have just a couple more loose ends to tie up, and then that'll be done, and we'll have a map that works for everybody now. And hopefully it'll be one which, depending on where you live, all you have to do is know your township, and then by that you'll also know then, for the most part, who your commissioner will be. So it should make it easier for constituents to be able to identify who their commissioners are, ultimately. I've also been working a lot on a child abuse protocol 2021 revision. Not only am I the prosecutor, but I'm also the president of the Child Advocacy Center here in Ionia County, which we share with Montcalm. It's called the I'm Safe Child Advocacy Center. So we've been working on this child abuse protocol, which will help assist every single law enforcement agent, medical, child protective service, Department of Health and Human Service, all those people that get involved with child abuse cases. It'll help guide them as to how to handle these types of cases. The last time it was updated was several years ago. Laws have changed. We've come up with new ways to handle situations, and so we're trying to implement those into the protocol. So that's been keeping me busy as well. One thing that's coming up real soon on the note of legislative change is the raise the age. All right, so on October 1st, people who are age 17, they are now treated as juveniles instead of adults. Right now, it's if you're charged with a crime and you're 17 years of age, you're treated as an adult. Okay, so they've shifted that now, and that's been a shift that's been going on across the nation. So it's not something that's unique to Michigan, but it is certainly presenting its share of problems too. Particularly considering what to do with all the cases right now that we have active with people that are 17 years of age charged as adults. Okay, do they all of a sudden go from meeting with the judge maybe tomorrow, or actually we'll say next week to talk about their adult case, or do they get shifted to the juvenile courts? We're hoping that there's going to be some legislative guidance in that. I think from what I hear, there's going to be some clarity, hopefully this week, on how to handle those types of cases. We'll see, but we're dealing with that as well. Lastly, I'll just touch base on the fact that, finding people to work is something that even the prosecutor's office is having a hard time doing right now. All right. I drive north and south on M66 every single day, twice a day. I see all the signs, all the agencies, all the restaurants looking for people. The prosecutor's office is looking for people. I've been trying to find an assistant prosecutor since April. All right. We used to get dozens of resumes a week. I haven't even gotten a dozen since April. It's ridiculous. Okay, I'm not sure what the problem is, but I've never seen such a dry well in all of my years at the prosecutor's office, and I've been there since 2008. All right. So, as a prosecutor's office, we're still struggling with that, but meanwhile, we're getting everything done, and I'm so glad to be back and giving you all these updates. Thank you so much.
Kyle, I think you're more important than you realize, because it really depends on what seat you're sitting in. You know, so and I've been in some of those courtrooms. Not on that seat though. Okay. We have the pleasure of having Peter Dick out here from. He's the regional director for Senator Gary Peters. You want to come on up?
Sure.
You made the law. I didn't even give you a chance to sit down and get a breather, did
No,
I?
welcome, by the way. Thank you. It's great to be back here in person. Sorry for my tardiness. We had a little incident on 96 East on the way over that maybe delayed some others. But so yeah, for those of you that I have not met, I am the West Michigan director for Senator Peters. We cover 14 counties. Have a physical office in the Grand Rapids Federal Building, but usually I'm in my Jeep. And it is really nice that this forum is back. Another one later today in Montcalm County that has been virtual for, 18 months. But just a quick bio of what the senator is up to. He chairs the Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee. He serves on the Armed Services Committee, and he serves on the Commerce Committee. And so that is a full plate, as all members have, typically 3 committee assignments in the Senate. The Homeland Security, of course, being the chair, is where we have a significant staff, and where he spends a lot of his sort of legislative focus. The Homeland Security is pretty apparent, obvious. The government affairs side is a little more individually oversight of federal agencies, and that is actually governing some of the legislative things that I wanted to highlight today. 3 items in particular. In the pending infrastructure bill, which we have the big fingers crossed on for this week, is a provision to fund what the senator and other members sponsored, which is called the STORM Act. And what this does is allow communities to get access to low-interest loans to build seawalls, barriers, or breakers, or make improvements to invest in physical infrastructure that will help mitigate the efforts of both shoreline erosion and natural disasters like a Grand River flood. We know the river's going to rise again. Shorelines along Lake Michigan and the other Great Lakes are down this year, but we know they'll be back up. And this again is a program that recognizes that communities need some support in supporting themselves, and we are optimistic and hopeful it will move forward. In a similar vein, even pre-pandemic, a lot of our work, or a lot of the senator's work, has been on supporting manufacturing and supporting the whole process of getting things built, making stuff. And so that gets into supply chains. Prior to the pandemic, he had an investigation that showed how significantly at risk we are for our over-reliance on other countries for a lot of products. And obviously with PPE that was exposed dramatically during COVID, and not just for face masks, but we're still recovering very much so in the supply chain of any number of different elements that go into our products. And certainly Michigan, as the auto capital, is seeing this tremendously, and especially in the area of computer chips. So it is something that he's continuing to work in a bipartisan manner to efforts to include visibility into our medical supply chains and incentivize manufacturing critical drugs and PPE here in the United States. It is something that, again, was only highlighted by COVID, but we need to continue to focus upon. Another area Homeland Security has direct oversight of is the United States Postal Service, USPS, the mail. And to ensure timely delivery remains a top priority. And they have been struggling, the Postal Service, to provide reliable, timely delivery. We all have our stories. It has ebbed and flowed. They have been short-staffed, like many agencies, and it's a very large organization, but they had, in the early years now, actually, of COVID, they had significant worker outages, and yet that is improving, and there's still a lot more work to be done. So one of the issues is the Postal Service is compelled uniquely to pre-fund all the retirement and health care. That is an area that has the Postal Service really kind of on its heels. There is bipartisan legislation that the senators sponsoring that would help alleviate some of that pension burden that other agencies are not facing, that would give them a little bit of the financial flexibility and nimbleness to improve themselves. Senator feels strongly that the Postal Service needs to be there. It is the last mile for many deliveries. Even the big mega corporations rely on good old USPS, and he's committed to finding a way to making sure that they can survive in a sustainable way. It might be a smaller one, but they need to find a path forward, and that committee is really committed to doing so. That's really what I wanted to just highlight today, but obviously you can hang around and answer questions as needed.
All right, thank you very much, Peter.
My pleasure.
Getting a little short on time, but I do want to take enough time to allow this gentleman to come up a little closer to home here. We have an important vote coming up on November 2nd, regardless of which side of it you're on, regarding our new library downtown. Dale, do you have a few comments you'd like to make?
Well, certainly, Steve. Thank you. So as Steve alluded, the library vote will be coming up on November 2nd. Just to prepare people for that vote, we have town hall functions coming up. The Friends of the Library have a very nice fundraiser that you can answer or get your questions answered. Very briefly, the first event is actually today at 5:30. It'll be held at Steel Street Hall. There'll be food and beverages available. I will be there as well as citizens for the Ione Community Library. They can answer all of your questions that you may have. It's also an outreach and a fellowship opportunity as well. If you cannot make it today at 5:30, please come to the next one, which is October 13th. That'll be at Cook's Creamery at 7 o'clock. Same sort of a format. Instead of food, you get ice cream though, right? So if you're partial to ice cream, just wait a week or two, right?
That's right.
That's right, okay. The Friends of the Library have a fundraiser where you can also get questions answered. That is a murder mystery dinner. It'll be a full dinner and dessert and the opportunity to talk with me and a whole bunch of other people. That'll be on Saturday, September 23rd. So you also get entertainment at that event as well for your donation, $50 per couple. So November 2nd is the big day, as Steve alluded to. We'll be more than happy to get any of your questions answered before that.
All right, thank you, Dale.
Yeah, thank you.
Steve, I believe Terry from United Way.
Terry, do you have a couple?
Yeah,
Terry from United Way.
Is it okay if I just stay here for a second? I just have
Sure.
two quick updates. We've processed with the emergency rental assistance, we've processed over $800,000 worth of rental assistance back into both Montcalm and Iowa counties, which is huge. We still have a lot to go. We have a couple more $1 million that we can spend, but that also gives utility assistance to those that are renting and broadband assistance. So I encourage, if you know anyone that's a renter, please send them to us. Our stakeholder meetings are starting this week for our housing project that we've been working on. We're working with the Upjohn Institute to do a comprehensive housing study of both Montcalm and Ionia counties. So that begins this week with our stakeholder meetings. We'll have a huge affordable housing conference that will be in January. So save the dates, will be going up for that. I encourage you to participate even if you're not directly involved in housing, because it impacts all of us. We know that employers aren't coming into our community because we don't have a place to house our people. And we know that we don't have a housing stock to even turn over within our young people that are coming out. So I encourage you to participate in that if you are so inclined. But mainly rental assistance, lots of dollars coming in. So we are eager to help with anyone. We're also doing a community needs assessment, so a little bit different than how community needs assessments are usually done. It's with our youth, so it's in all the middle school and high schools to find out what our youth are saying is our issues in our community. So results will be coming from that soon. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you, Terry.
Sally, did you have anything from the Three Star Collaborative?
I would just like to thank everybody in this room for the support for early childhood. The $1.4 billion is huge. And I've kind of spoke out about the needs in Ionia County and how we really lack childcare. And how this will affect us is we have more of the Alice population, and they do not qualify for the childcare subsidy, but they will now. But the biggest problem we have is we don't have, we have waiting lists at all of our childcare centers. For the most part, so we need to have space and we need to have staff. Staffing is the #1 issue. So when these grants come out for early childhood, I'm keeping a close eye on them, and I will call together community leaders to really get the most we can out for Ionia County to address the issue. Because that is, I guess, one of the biggest issues that families are having about returning to work is no child care. And that kind of continues through the school age kids too, because if they're off school for a month, how do you work? It's very difficult to homeschool and care for your children. So I'm just thankful that there's money towards this now.
All right, thank you, Sally. All right, so we have about 3 minutes left here that we can address questions on camera. And then we'll shut the
I can
camera
move
off
the
and people
camera
can stick
around.
Are there any questions for any of our speakers today? Yes, Terry.
I just have a statement. We are getting an influx of calls, just like Representative Kelly said about unemployment. We are getting a massive amount of calls coming in for people who are under fraudulent claims. All of them that we have sent to the Unemployment Insurance Agency, they're all coming back as errors, but that is causing, it's a substantial issue. They're not getting the letter saying that these are sent out in error. So I just, as everyone that sits here at the table, just know that it's really a very big local issue. And it's not being resolved. It has not slowed down since the pandemic started. It's just becoming more and more. So.
Very good. Anybody else? Yes, Dave.
Just a statement, along with the early childhood, we know that if we spend $1 on early childhood training, we save $17 at the reformatory or prison system. So I am a big supporter, although we do need the jobs in the prison.
Thank you, Dave. Anybody else? Yes.
So I'd just like to thank all of you who came here from either the, at the national level, the state level, the county or the city level. Thank you very much. This is not an easy job all the time. I did have just a couple of questions.
Yeah,
It would be directed at Senator Peters' office. It's more of a statement of question. So I'm coming from a small business perspective on what the state has. There's a huge concern, of course, with what happened during COVID with sources for materials, either semiconductors or PPE, all of that. And if we truly want to bring that back on American shores, a surefire way not to do that is increase business taxes. That's a horrible idea. That's a surefire way of preventing that. The other thing from what I gathered today from listening to several of the speakers, is we have some excess funds that still haven't been spent from the previous CARES Act and support for COVID recovery. Last thing we probably need right now is a 3.5 billion more money on top of the 1.2 trillion for infrastructure, which we truly need. I think what we're on about the 8th president that said we're going to do infrastructure, so it'd be great to have this administration get that through. So I'm totally supportive of that. But another 3.5 trillion, all you got to do is, history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes, and we can learn a great deal of things from history. And one of them that we talked about inflation and money supply. Money supply is a cause of inflation quite often. It was a great history lesson. Look back to Germany in the 20s and 30s. You couldn't buy a loaf of bread with a wheelbarrow full of money. That wasn't an inflation problem. That was money was worthless because they printed too much of it. So we got to stop the monopoly money. That's foolhardy. So and thank you. It seems like I'm just picking on him, but I'm not. Thank you.
Can we tell he's a financier? Whatever.
Whatever you want.
All right. Our time is up, unfortunately. We can continue with the questions after the fact. We'll take one more from Senator Bison.
And again, it's for Peter, if I may. Is Senator Peters going to be supporting the the $3.5 trillion expense or not?
I have not heard. I'm not certain as of yet. And when it gets to a vote, that's when I will know.
Okay.
I feel like I'm right in the
All right,
middle.
thank you. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. We were uncertain of what our turnout was going to be. It's been a long time. We appreciate you guys coming. Some of you from long distances, some of you navigating through bad traffic, and we really do appreciate it. I would also like to take just a second to thank Kat, our chamber executive, and her trusty assistant, Christine, for all the work they did to update our list and to get this thing off and running. So I do appreciate it. We look forward to seeing all of you and then some. Bring a friend. All right, we'll see you on October 25th right here, same time. Okay? Have a good day.